Senator Cardozo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honourable colleagues, I was not planning to speak at the second reading of Bill C-18, but I thought it would be useful to provide you with a perspective on how the CRTC works so that you can make an evaluation of its abilities and shortcomings. I hope in this small way I can contribute to the discussion, and for those who know a lot of this information, I apologize. So I've entitled my speech, 12 Things You Want to Know About the CRTC When Evaluating Bill C-18. And at the end, I will share my thoughts about the issues in the bill that I would like to focus once we get to committee. As I have mentioned before, I spent 6 years as a national commissioner at the CRTC, and it's one of those agencies where you can take the commissioner out of you can take the person out of the CRTC, but you can never take the CRTC out of the person. It is a fascinating agency that affects the everyday lives of Canadians so directly, which results in there being a long list of alumni who keep a watch on the agency or find ways to keep in touch. My ways of keeping in touch were to teach media regulation at Carleton University, to be a member of the Canadian Broadcast Standards Council, the nonprofit organization that addresses complaints about offensive content on radio and television, and from time to time to guide people interested in participating in the process. So here are the 12 points I'd like to share with you. Number one, the CRTC is established by the CRTC Act, which describes the aims and structure of this quasi-judicial agency in brief. But the two main acts that the agency implements are the Telecommunications Act, the Broadcasting Act, the Telecommunications Act and the Broadcasting Act, the latter of which will be overlaid by the Online Streaming Act, Bill C-11, should that become law. There is other legislation that is relevant too, such as the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms and the Official Languages Act. Number two, while the CRTC does allow for 13 commissioners, both the Harper and Trudeau governments have kept the number at 9. There being a chairperson, 2 vice chairs, and 6 regional commissioners. All members are appointed by the Governor and Council, that is the federal cabinet, following an open application process. Appointments are for a maximum of 5 years, and appointment dates tend to be staggered, so there's always a combination of experienced and new commissioners at any given time. They come from a variety of backgrounds, often with experience in some aspect of broadcasting or telecommunications. Once those appointments are made, commissioners and the Commission operate at arm's length from the government, taking its direction from the relevant legislation that it has to implement. The biography and length of the term of each commissioner is listed on the CRTC website. Now, having mentioned the arm's length, I need to mention that the Cabinet does have the ability to issue broad directives to the Commission from time to time, as they did earlier this week, directing the CRTC to take a series of measures to advance competition in telecommunications. The Cabinet, however, does not have the ability, for example, to award a license to a particular entity, which really goes to the reason for setting up the arm's length agency in the first place. The thinking was you wouldn't want cabinet ministers picking who got a license and who didn't. Number 4, there are some 650 public servants who work for the Commission, and most have considerable expertise in areas of policy that the agency is responsible for. Some are long-term employees with deep experience, while others are recruited from the industry or consumer groups to bring in current perspectives from the outside world. Number 5, the Commission usually makes about 400 decisions per year. Now, that used to be about 1,000 a year when I was there way back some 20 years ago, but this suggests that they have been successful in reducing the level of regulation, allowing more flexibility, and delegating to Commission staff the ability to render more administrative decisions. My sense is while they have foregone a lot of minor issues, the big issues are getting bigger and more complex. Number 6, the 9 commissioners make all the decisions together based on an online proceedings, or what we would call in-writing proceedings. with the public unless a panel of a smaller number of commissioners is struck for in-person hearings. These hearings are only struck for policy hearings or some of the major and more competitive issues, and they comprise perhaps 1% of the decisions that are made by the CRTC. So for the most part, it's in writing proceedings that are decided on by all commissioners. Number 7, just about every weekday, the Commission issues 2 kinds of announcements. Under the page entitled Today's Releases or Nouvelles du Jour. First are invitations to the public to comment on applications before them, and second are the decisions that have been made. I think this makes it one of the most active websites in the Government of Canada. Number 8, every decision is made on the basis of a public process, which means applicants have to lay everything out for the public to see. In addition, all comments, be they for or against the applicant, are made public. The Commission can only use information that is on the public record to make a decision. And I should tell you, when I started, I found it hard to get used to the process because my usual practice would be to grab for every kind of information one could find. But indeed, if I wanted to insert anything else, I would have to put it on the public record at the beginning of the proceeding. Sometimes the Commission will include internal or external research that has been prepared for the particular proceeding or point to other existing publicly available information elsewhere. This is all designed to avoid any private discussions or secret dealings with applicants. On rare occasions, some competitive commercial information may remain confidential. Now, that having been said, the discussion among commissioners and staff in determining an outcome once the hearing is over are all confidential or in camera. I suppose that is to make sure that everyone can be open and frank, much like cabinet or judicial documents and discussions. The way this process works is that the staff prepare an analysis of the issues and they recommend a decision or decisions to the Commission members. Sometimes the Commission members will accept that advice, and other times they will accept some part of it or reject it completely and go in a different direction. But the staff still provides a very professional set of information and analysis to the commissioners, and it is the commissioners' responsibility to make the final decision. I have to tell you that these internal documents were some of the most analytical, professional, and interesting documents I read while I was there, or perhaps ever have read, and I regret that they do not see the light of day beyond the Commission building. So my suggestion would be for these documents to be made public after a decision is made, in whole or in part, so the public can read these really comprehensive analyses and, in so doing, advance greater transparency on how decisions are made. Number 10, there is financial assistance available to interveners, be they individuals or nonprofit organizations, which allows the CRTC to balance out the well-financed interventions by the big corporations with the voices of ordinary Canadians. Number 11, and I'm almost at 12. Number 11, the CRTC has a range of policies and types of decisions. So this is what does the CRTC do? What do they put out? On the broadcast side, it has made decisions to create a suite of policies that address, for example, television broadcasting in Canada, campus radio, competition across the country and in small markets, French language broadcasting, gender and diversity portrayal, Indigenous broadcasting, and online broadcasting. And the decisions can also be on licensing applications after an application process. On the telecommunications side, the decisions address efficient telephony, the internet, competition, affordability, and consumer rights. In addition, the CRTC makes its own regulations on a wide range of issues. Number 12, the Commission has also delegated outwards some of its responsibilities while maintaining oversight so that the industry or communities have more of a direct say. These include the management of funds for program development, which are funded by cable and satellite companies, for example, and then managed by nonprofit organizations such as the Canadian Media Fund. They operate at arm's length from the Commission, but implement the broad directions to advance made-in-Canada content, what's often called Canadian content. I prefer to call it made-in-Canada content because it is really a cultural, an employment, and an industrial policy. When it comes to complaints, the CRTC has authorized self-regulated processes for complaints. On the broadcast side, to manage public complaints regarding offensive content, and on the telecommunications side, a process to address issues related to price and cost. Full disclosure, I've been a volunteer with the Canadian Broadcast Standards Council for several years, and I'm currently listed as an adjudicator and chair of the Nominations Committee. For the record, I've asked the Senate Ethics Officer for guidance on whether I can continue in this role. And again, I want to underline it is a volunteer role, and I have no ownership or connection to any broadcasting company. Now, there is obviously a great deal more one can say about the CRTC and what it does, but I thought these 12 points are most relevant directly or indirectly to your consideration of C-18. So allow me now, please, to make a few observations about the bill. This bill, like many others, presents a conundrum, and perhaps this is just not unusual in lawmaking. I have been a regulator, as I just talked about, and believe strongly in the benefits that regulation can bring, but I am also very aware and very concerned about unnecessary or over-regulation. That said, I think that the risk of doing nothing to help newspapers in this new world of powerful and ubiquitous online media is very concerning. Already far too many newspapers have folded, and the future of this medium sits on a knife's edge. This is about the rights of people to be informed and entertained by and about Canadians. It is about our democracy. Just as we marked Flag Day yesterday, I am proud of our Canadian broadcasting, Canadian services, and Canadian corporations, which are always at risk of being gobbled up by American and other worldwide corporations. In my view, those who disagree with the bill need to explain what will happen without such legislation, or perhaps they can outline a realistic alternative. And to date, I have not heard one, but I am certainly all ears. I would also like to hear more from the CRTC as to how they will implement this law, which will, in effect, be a new business line for them. With that, colleagues, I will say that I'm favorably disposed to Bill 18, but I'm keeping an open mind at this stage. Thank you.